for Talkin' Boxing with Billy C. It began as a podcast, went live on the net, and transformed into a full-blown empire. Across the web, on Fight Now TV, and on radio stations around the world. It's the only daily boxing talk radio show on the planet, hosted by the only guy with the balls to do it. Many have stepped into the ring. Many have tried to take the belt. And one by one, they've fallen. Another victim of the undisputed heavyweight champion of boxing talk radio. Talkin' Boxing with Billy C is on now.
My style is impetuous, my defense is impregnable, and I'm just ferocious. I want your heart.
And we're coming to you live from the Billy C Studios in Lake George, New York. I'm Bill Calagione. It's time for Talking Boxing with Billy C. Good morning, good day, good evening. Whenever you listen, I want to give a shout out to all of our ESPN Radio and Fox Sports Radio listeners. Glad you guys could join us. We have a busy show today, we think. Today's Friday. You know the deal on Friday. You guys drive the show. We'll open up the phone lines. We're going to go commercial free for the most part. But I got some stuff to go over first, so don't call in until I give you the go-ahead. But today's show is being brought to you in part by the Southern Gourmet Spice Company. If you're looking for a unique spice that makes everything taste better, check out Kenny Bear's Barbecue Rub. It's not just for barbecues. See what I'm talking about? Get yourself a bottle. Visit our website, www.billycboxing.com, and click on the Southern Gourmet Spice banner, which is right there on the right-hand side. Today's show is also being brought to us in part by BrainHealthForever.com. That's right, www.brainhealthforever.com. Take care of your brain. It's a terrible thing to waste. See what I'm talking about? www.brainhealthforever.com. Today's show is also being brought to us in part by Island Boxing's big event, which is taking place Thursday night, January 21st, in beautiful West Palm Beach, Florida. We want you guys to join us. We're having a get-together. It's my birthday, too, so I'm going to be willing to let you guys buy me as many scotches as you want. So if you want to come on down and hang out with us, drop me an email, and we'll give you some special treatment. Billy at Talkin' Boxing, TalkinBoxing.com, or you could just buy tickets from the box office, and there's a fight poster up on BillyCBoxing.com for you to click to get the information and the number and all of that. Now, if you can't make it to beautiful West Palm Beach, Florida in about 10 days or so on January 21st, well then, fear not, because we're going to be broadcasting the whole event from start to finish right on LDL TV and LDLTV.com, so you'll be able to check that out. So don't miss it. And finally, today's show is being brought to us in part by my book. Tom Molyneux, From Bondage to Baddest Man on the Planet, is available right now where all good books are sold, including Barnes & Noble and Amazon.com. When I say you can get it right now, you can get it right now if you go visit Amazon.com or Barnes & Noble. In case you haven't noticed, we got 5-star ratings on both. You can also get the book in electronic format from both suppliers. And if you're looking to get a signed copy, just visit our website, www.billycboxing.com, and click on the book club section and follow the directions for wherever you may be. I think I was sitting in the wrong spot. I need to fire Jeremy. Oh, that's right. Jeremy's not here. But anyway, we got some emails to read. Now, don't forget about the poll question. I'll give you the updated numbers today. The poll question is, who's the best heavyweight? Now, I got an email asking me how come I didn't put Luis Ortiz on there. Well, we had put this poll question up just before the Luis Ortiz-Bryant Jennings fight, and it would be kind of unfair to just, put him up there now, and he would be, starting off with a 0 percentage. But great point, because that was really, in my opinion, the best fight of his career so far. So anyway, with the heavyweights that we have, and the question is, who's the best heavyweight? Forget about belts, forget about anything else. Who do you think is the best heavyweight out there? Right now, still tied for first, Anthony Joshua, Tyson Fury at 28.8% of you that have voted say those two are number one. Following a close second, which is surprising to me, really, at least by my opinion, is Deontay Wilder at 23.1%. In third place, Alexander Povetkin, 11.5%. And still shocking to me, not so much with Bryant Jennings, but tied with Bryant Jennings for the worst percentage, Vladimir Klitschko, 3.8%. 3.8%. Got some good news for you, and you guys could all just send money or thanks to my man Joel for putting me on the spot the other day when he called in, and I've pretty much heard it since from people that I talked to throughout the day. And the answer is yes, we will be kicking off 2016 with our first post-fight show immediately following the conclusion of Deontay Wilder Artur Spilska. So you can tune it in right here on BillyCBoxing.com. We'll have the phone lines open. You know the routine. We are the best post-fight show out there. So make sure as soon as that fight is over, approximately 6 minutes after the official announcement is made, tune it in right here, and we'll be taking your calls, getting your thoughts. I'll be giving you mine, etc., etc., etc. Manny Pacquiao. I mean, today, I was thinking, there's not too much going on today, really, in a sense, with new things. But I was thinking, and we had talked about it earlier in the week about Manny Pacquiao, announcing that it was his last fight, and he picked Timothy Bradley. And I like the fight. Timothy Bradley is arguably a pound-for-pound fighter. He's relevant in the division, in the welterweight division today. He just signed Teddy Atlas, and we also saw a change in Timothy Bradley, at least discipline-wise, for not getting sucked into a brawl. And I think this is a challenge. And my point is that great fighters do great things. They challenge themselves, and they want to prove that they're the best. Whether they really are the best or not, that's yet to be determined, but at least they try to prove it. If you go back in the history of this sport, you'll see many, many fighters. As a matter of fact, most of the all-time greats all did that. Now, obviously, the times have changed a little bit without getting into that, but when you go back in the history and you see fighters like, Sugar Ray Robinson or even closer to present times with Sugar Ray Leonard and Hagler and Tommy Hearns, etc. They all tried to prove that they were the best by doing outrageous things. Even Roy Jones Jr. Now, for those of you that are too young to have seen Roy Jones Jr. in his prime, Roy Jones Jr. Seeked out the best too. He became a heavyweight champion. I don't want to hear, he beat up Ruiz. So what? Ruiz had a unique stat at one point. I believe his last 15 fights, maybe 13 of them, were against either champions or former world champions who were currently ranked in the top 3. So, this is a guy that beat some good guys. He wasn't an exciting fighter, Johnny Ruiz, and Roy Jones Jr. beat him. So my point is great fighters do great things. They fight bigger guys. They fight, outside their weight class, etc., etc. Manny Pacquiao obviously did that throughout his career, but now he's announcing that it's his final fight, and instead of picking a layup fight, instead of picking up a guy who didn't have a chance to win, like Andre Berto, he chooses a guy that's right there in the mix right now, a top guy in Timothy Bradley. I respect that. Win, lose, or draw, when April comes around and that fight takes place, to me, at least in my book, Manny Pacquiao has all kinds of respect for at least taking that chance. I believe when it's all said and done, taking those chances are worth something. Now, if he gets blown out in one round, maybe not so much. But if it's an entertaining fight and he comes up short, you got to give the guy credit. Anyway, let me get some emails out of the way so I can open up the phone lines and let you guys drive this show. And we'll go from here. So first one is, of course, from Jesse. Jesse says, "Hey, Billy C, what's your thoughts on Javier Molina versus Jamal James? Who wins?" He says, "I think it will be close." I don't know. I really haven't had a chance to give that much thought. Initially, out of the gate, I think Molina has the edge, but we'll see. I think it'll be a close fight. That's a good question. I think it'll be a close fight. I lean towards Molina in that one. He says, also, what does it take to be a professional trainer? I noticed that Robert Garcia's son is only 19, and he's a professional boxing trainer. That question, it's funny you asked that, Jesse, because that's something that really irks the hell out of me. As a matter of fact, I was talking to someone about that just the other day. Oh, actually, Pat Holmes, who's a trainer out in New Mexico, and he's actually trains a couple of his sons, but he also has been to Big Bear and with Oscar De La Hoya, and he's been around. Actually worked with Roger Mayweather when Floyd was fighting, several years ago. I mean, so he's a trainer. We were talking about that, and you've heard me talk about that with Larry Hazard. That's the problem with the sport. Anybody can be a trainer. Now, I'm not discrediting Robert Garcia's son at all at 19 years old. But my point is that I, who am not a trainer, never said I was, I know the nuts and bolts of boxing, and I can tell you what a fighter's doing right or wrong from a visual point of view, but I'm no trainer, and I never claimed to be. And if I had, my fighters, I don't claim to train them. I might ask a trainer a question. I might say, hey, I'm noticing he's doing this, doing that. And the trainer says, yeah, shut the F up. You're not the trainer. And I went, oh, yeah, that's right. But the truth of the matter is that I could, if I paid the fee, I could be the chief second. And every commission, I mean, it's terrible how they let it do it. And that's one of the issues that Larry Hazard and I talked about. I believe that boxing, and by the way, it's the only sport like that. You're not going to step into the NFL and say, hey, by the way, I'm a coach. Oh, okay. Hey, you know what? The Lions are looking for a new coach. You want to coach? So something like that. No, it doesn't happen. You got to have experience in it. The same thing today. I think the problem with a lot of the trainers is they're not training. They're not trainers. They're not teachers. They're rah-rah men. I listen. All I know is when I heard on TV not too long ago a trainer, say to his fighter in between rounds, literally, hey, listen, you got to hit him more. And by the way, don't let him hit you anymore. Ding. It's like, what? What the hell is that? Yeah, no kidding. I mean, come on. It's like, come on, Captain Obvious. No shit, Sherlock, etc. All of them. It's like, give me a break, right? We don't have good teachers anymore. And the reason we don't have good teachers as trainers is because boxing's not a trade anymore. How many fighters, even top guys, they box as a part-time gig. They work someplace during the day, and then after work they go in the gym and they train and they pick up a fight here and there and they work it through where their job is, and they get off for the fights and everything else. But that's not how it was 20 years and beyond ago. All right, a fighter would become an amateur fighter. A kid would walk into a gym, he'd get into fighting, he would become an amateur fighter, go through his amateur career, turn pro if he was good enough, and then after his pro career, depending upon how well it went, the guy would stay in the sport, or as a trainer or a gym owner or a promoter or a manager. And then the end result is we had guys that were boxing people. Well, that has changed. There's and a lot of it has to do with the types of gyms that there are. The old smelly boxing gyms are being replaced by the plush, new, fancy, top-notch equipment, video screens, stationary bikes. I can't tell you, I wish I had $1 for every single boxer that tells me that their cardio program is on a stationary bike or a Stairmaster or something like that. They're not running outside anymore, which I think is bad. So, to be honest with you, what I think it should take to be a professional trainer is some type of an educational process. I think that all trainers on the pro level should take some kind of a course, and for that matter, they should be taking it in our amateur program as well. Be certified, have a license, just like I do matchmaking. I promote. You got to have a license for that. You got to be basically you're paying for it. You got to have a license as a trainer too. You pay your fee, but I pay my fee. Like I said, I could be the chief second tomorrow on a fight card. All I got to do is pay the fee. The commission shouldn't let me be a trainer. I'm not a trainer. I don't know how to, I could hand a guy a bottle of water, but that's it. So I think we need to revisit that, to be honest with you. But to tell you the truth, Jesse, all you need to do is pay the fee. So he says, finally, I think Herrera deserved the shot against Crawford instead of Lundy. That would have been a good fight. What do you think? I like Hammer and Hank Lundy, and I think Herrera is kind of focusing on a big fight with Ruslan Prodanikov, like we talked about yesterday. But good email. I like the questions like the trainer one. That's good question, Jess. Next email I got is my man Mark from Newcastle, England. Mark says, hey, Billy C., as always, I love the show. I just wanted to get your thoughts on the future of boxing, in particular with regards to the number of sanctioning bodies within the sport. Is the damage of creating 4 sanctioning organizations and allowing them to alter the landscape of the sport now irreversible? Or do you ever envision different sanctioning bodies merging together? In my opinion, this would certainly give the titles far more value and provide a pool of better quality challengers and ultimately better fights. First of all, my man Mark from Newcastle, England, is referring to the top sanctioning bodies because, what? You're thinking we're supposed to take a break? Yeah. It's Friday, man. We go commercial free, remember? All right. He's talking about the top 4 sanctioning bodies, and you could even sprinkle in the IBO to make it 5, because those are the top respectable ones, at least in my opinion. But that's too many, There's way more sanctioning bodies than that, unfortunately. But here's the problem. The infiltration of these sanctioning bodies and the addition of new ones will never go away. The reason why they'll never go away is a couple. Number one, they're not going to just walk away from their cash cow. You're asking somebody who's making money off of the sport to all of a sudden not make money. And to merge together, I was involved. You guys knew I was involved with the sanctioning body. And they tried to merge together. And I said, when we were having preliminary meetings, I'm like, it's not going to work. Wait till the first fight. When the greed factor comes in, when you start to figure out how you're going to divvy up the fees, how you're going to divvy up the sanctioning fees, and sure as shit, that's exactly what happened. It didn't even have one. Not one fight even happened because they were already snaking each other behind the scenes, and basically, what you're asking these guys to do is become honest, and that's not going to happen. So them working together, the closest we have of them working together is what we see today, and they're not really working together. They added another title so that they can continue with the sanctioning fees. Now, as far as it being irreversible, yeah, I think it's irreversible. I don't think that these guys are going to all of a sudden let their claws out of the sport. The only way that you can get rid of them is to stop paying sanctioning fees. It's up to the fighters. But you see, here's the other part of the problem. The other part of the problem is that the TV networks and the promoters themselves created these guys. They start looking for other, I'll tell you right now, without mentioning names, local, smaller promoters, they'll go to those IBU, UBME titles and they'll put those titles on the card and let their fighters fight for them because the sanctioning fees are cheaper. So the promoters and the networks feel that the only way they can actually promote a fight is if there's a title on the line, which is, again, BS. I've said this before, and I'll say it again in case you're new to the show. The problem with boxing, one of the biggest problems with boxing, is promoters don't promote. Fighters don't fight, managers don't manage. I mean, we've become a lazy sport. It's the only sport like it. Promoters used to promote fighters. The way a promoter is supposed to promote a fighter is they're supposed to introduce a young fighter to you, the fan. Then they're supposed to build them up and create a following to you, the fan. So you start talking about it. Remember when Tyson hit the scene? Remember when Sugar Ray Leonard or Marvin Hagler, when they hit the scene, you start learning about them, you start seeing them. And then, you follow them. You become a fan. Especially with today's technology, you can find out when they're taking a shit. Adrian Broner's glad to film himself taking shits. So, the bottom line is, it's up to the promoter to introduce you to the fighter. But that's not what happens anymore. What we have now with promoters is they use retread fighters. They take a fighter that the name has already been out there and they try to keep them in the mix so they don't have to promote. Promoters became very lazy. The biggest problem with the sport of boxing is one word: greed. Greed is the problem with boxing. And, it's hard to get rid of something like greed because, there's always somebody else to step in and take over. If somebody all of a sudden wakes up one day and decides to, not be greedy, if that person was greedy, there's somebody else ready to say, but me, I'm next, man. I'm the next greedy bastard, So, and unfortunately, that's the truth of that. And just like you're saying, Mark, if we didn't have all these sanctioning bodies, if we didn't have all these titles, you would see a pool of better fighters. You'd see these fighters competing against each other to obtain those less quantity titles. And just like I said on Monday or Tuesday, whatever day it was, it's the same thing, same principle you learn in business 101, supply and demand. When you have less of something, the value of that goes up. When you have a lot of something, the value goes down. And that's exactly what's happened with the sport of boxing today. And the only value that the fighter has is they get a little more negotiation power with a network or a promoter. But that's kind of a catch-22. I personally think that champions could be making a lot more money if they became the champions with less titles. Now, what's happening is they're not making as much money, but supposedly more fighters are making a few extra dollars more when they can get on TV because they got a title. And a great example of that is what's going on right now with Billy Joe Saunders and Triple G's negotiations. So, great email. Another good one from my man Mark from Newcastle, England. This one's from my man Angel from Madison, Wisconsin. Him and his pops watch the show all the time, so I appreciate that, and I love the interaction. And hey, by the way, just remember, if you take the time to write me an email, I'll take the time to read it on air. Billy at Talkin' Boxing, TalkinBoxing.com. Angel says, hey, I'd like to get your thoughts on the Margarito's fight against Cotto the first time and against Mosley and his illegal substance used on his hand wraps. I'd like to know what was the specific substance used. It was like sort of they kept saying it was like sort of a plaster of Paris where it wasn't plaster of Paris, but similar to that where they wet the gauze and it got hard after it was in, when they taped his hands, it was wet. And when it dried, it got hard inside the gloves. I'm not sure exactly what the substance was. I know that they did identify it, but he says, do you think that against Cotto that he used illegal hand wraps, and what made Mosley's corner suspect that he had illegal wraps, and how long could Margarito have been illegally hand wrapping? How was the Nevada commission able to miss an obvious that Mosley's corner saw, and should Margarito have been banned from the sport? A year suspension to me is not proper considering prize fighters fight once or twice a year. Yeah, now they do. Listen, if you're going to taint your gloves somehow, that's really one of the worst things you could do. in this sport. It's the same thing. When you cheat, you cheat. I mean, fighters that take steroids, I mean, they're cheating. How could the commission miss it? I don't know. Why didn't Margarito get suspended, banned for life? His trainer got banned for life, just like Panama Lewis did when they used to have horsehair in the gloves when he took those out in a famous fight. The thing is this. When you saw the video, remember Margarito's claim was he didn't know, and they show him taping his hands and he's looking all around, the guy could be putting horseshoes in there and he wouldn't know. Everybody that I ever saw get their hands taped looks at their hands. Everyone, except that video that I watched of Margarito looking around at, counting the dots on the ceiling of the dressing room. So it's very hard for me to believe that he didn't know what was going on. That's my opinion with that. How the commission didn't know. You know what? Sometimes they have complete morons in there. I can't answer that question, But how Mosley's team knew it, I think it was Hakeem Richardson, noticed it when they felt the glove. When they felt the hand, they felt something funny. And sure enough, they find out that it was in there, that something was bad. And that fight that he fought with Mosley, he ended up without having tainted gloves. And he could have very well have been, doing something with his gloves for a long time. Unfortunately, we'll never know. We can only assume, and that's a negative in itself. If that was the first time they ever tried to get the edge like that, then, the assumption is that, he's been doing that all the time. At least to me, that's what I would think, But anyway, another good email. Thank you, I appreciate that. And finally, the last one here is from Raheem. Raheem says, "Hey Billy C, I'd like to know what makes a boxer a Hall of Famer. Baseball has a tendency to not include good players, but only great ones. As I look at boxing's Hall of Fame, I see some boxers that were good but not great. My example of a good boxer is De La Hoya. Oscar never won big fights and lost all of his big fights. That to me says that on the big stage he failed. He has to be a good, overrated boxer, but that's not worth him being in the Hall of Fame with guys like Ali, Robinson, and Marciano. I never understood the admiration for, admiration for Oscar and his limited abilities to win the big one. His induction makes me say that a boxer like Maidana should be let in. Oscar has to be the most overrated boxer in the Hall of Fame because he just failed to win the big one." Raheem, I appreciate your thoughts and everything, but let me tell you something. You have drank the Floyd Mayweather bullshit bottles of Kool-Aid long enough. That is typical lines coming from the Mayweather camps. Oscar De La Hoya, first of all, was an Olympian, gold medal winner, something Floyd never did. He was in the Olympics, he didn't win a gold. All right, that's number one. Number two, to suggest that Oscar De La Hoya didn't beat anybody is one of the most ridiculous things I've ever heard. The one thing about Oscar De La Hoya, and you know what, Raheem, you should really research things before you make comments like that. And you should really look deeper into a fighter's career other than what you may see or hear, what you may see on a record or what you may hear from other people. And if you look at Oscar De La Hoya's record, you'll see that this man, during his career, did exactly what I was talking about in the beginning of this show, about seeking out the toughest, most difficult fights that he could at the time. Keep in mind, he's a 6th divisional world champion. He was a world junior lightweight champion, junior welterweight, junior middleweight, and a middleweight champion. Count them, 6, all right? And as far as him not being able to win the big one, when you look at his record, he beat Hall of Fame fighters like Julio Cesar Chavez, Pernell Whitaker, Hector Camacho, who just recently got in, Ike Corte. You may not have heard of Ike Corte, but when Oscar De La Hoya fought him in 1999, he was undefeated. Ike Corte was a badass fighter that Oscar De La Hoya won, and it wasn't easy. He had another good fighter, Obakar. Just because you don't know who these guys are, the names you think of that he lost to, guys like Trinidad and Mosley and Pacquiao and Mayweather, you're forgetting about other guys like Javier Castillo and Fernando Vargas, vicious Fernando Vargas, who was a killer at the time. And he beat him. He beat the same guy that Mayweather beat, that a lot of Mayweather fans give credit for, and that's Arturo Gatti. He lost to Mayweather, he lost to Pacquiao, he lost to Bernard Hopkins, but he was also at the end of his career still trying to prove that he was one of the best of all time. He beat Felix Sturm in a close, controversial fight, but he got the W anyway. Anyway, he beat Rory Boyd Campus, and Rory Boyd Campus was a big time fighter. He fought Stevie Forbes, who at the end of his career, both of them were at the end of the career, but he still got the win. When you look at Oscar De La Hoya at 39 wins for career, 30 by knockout with 6 losses, and which he was only stopped twice. One, he quit on his stool after getting beat the hell out by Manny Pacquiao. The only time he was ever stopped in his career was against Bernard Hopkins with that vicious body shot. And quite honestly, this wasn't a guy that was a legitimate middleweight against B-Hop. You're totally wrong. Oscar De La Hoya is exactly the kind of fighter that should be in the Boxing Hall of Fame, 100%. And what makes a fighter in the Hall of Fame? Well, in yesteryear's fighters, a champion, just like in football, you win a Super Bowl and you're a star quarterback, chances are you're going to get in the Hall of Fame. In boxing, if you became a world champion when there was only one title, you pretty much got in the Hall of Fame. But then now, because there's so many titles, even the Hall of Fame knows that, just because you win a title doesn't necessarily mean you're a Hall of Fame fighter. But you also have to bring something else. This is my opinion. You have to bring something else. You have to have made a significant impact on the sport. And Oscar De La Hoya certainly made a significant impact on the sport, and he still is to this day. No, I'm sorry, Raheem. I love that you listen to the show. I love that your pops is listening to the show now and all that. But, man, you are totally misled with some of your thoughts and stuff. And I hope that you're the minority and not the majority of people that are thinking that way, to be honest with you. Because, to me, Oscar De La Hoya is a prime example of the types of fighters that we do want in the Hall of Fame. He never ducked anyone. And all you got to do is look at your idol, Floyd Mayweather, and you can find the last decade worth of ducking fights. And don't tell me he fought Canelo Alvarez and Manny Pacquiao and Cotto and all those guys as being great fighters, because they are. I'm not going to knock that. I'm not going to take that away. But he calculated his risk and fought them all at the end. And even with Pacquiao, which I hated the excuse, and I give Floyd all the credit because he beat Pacquiao, no question. But let's be real. If Pacquiao did have a shoulder he couldn't throw punches, he didn't fight a prime Pacquiao. He ducked a prime Pacquiao. He ducked prime fighters throughout the last decade of his career. There's no question about that. Instead of fighting guys like Margarito or other tough fighters, he picked the easiest, weakest link in the welterweight division in Carlos Baldomir. So, no, I'm sorry, man. You're totally wrong about Oscar De La Hoya. He's exactly what I want to see in the Hall of Fame. Hey, thank you for the emails. Thanks, everybody. Remember, if you take the time to email me, I'll take the time to read it. Billy at Talkin' Boxing. That's TalkinBoxing.com. Now, today is Friday, and you guys get to drive the show, and I was just going to say the phone lines are open, but somebody's on the line right now. What's your name? Where you calling from?
It's Mike from Michigan.
Hey, Mike from Michigan. Somebody was just talking about you the other day in the chat room, man. How was your holidays?
They were okay.
Good.
How were your holidays, Billy?
They were good, man. They were good. I got to spend some time with my kids and my grandkids. It was fun. It was a great time, and it was actually warm up here in New York, but we're getting paid back for that right now. But I don't know.
You know what? It was actually pretty warm down here in Detroit too. So.
Well, you know what? All of that's changed now. It's getting cold here on the East Coast.
Yeah,
But,
I know.
But what do you think of that last? Well, I'm sure you have something else to talk about. But what do you think of that last? How could
that's
Oscar?
what I'm calling about. That's what I'm so mad about.
Oh, okay, good.
I was listening to that in the car. I'm in the car. I'm driving home from work, and I know it's Friday, and I'm like, "Are you kidding me?" Someone just said Oscar De La Hoya shouldn't be in the Hall of Fame. That makes no sense, Billy. None.
I know. I mean, listen. Raheem is a young kid, and I think that he's learning.
A dumb young kid.
No. Well, you know what? I'm not going to say that. The thing is this. His family's all boxing fans, and they watch it and stuff, and everybody's entitled to their own opinion. But my point with him, and I think he's learning. Listen. The reason why I like Raheem and I like that he's interacting with us is I believe he's learning, and he's going by what's been force fed. Remember, we're older, and some of us are older than others, but
I'm not old, Billy.
I know. I'm saying we're older, and I said some of us are older than others.
Right.
Meeting myself, but the truth of the matter is Floyd Mayweather is the type of guy that is able to, coax. He's like the. Not that he's into, negative things like drugs or anything, but he's like that drug dealer that's hanging around the schoolyard talking kids into trying drugs. Not that he does that. I'm just saying, but that nature of the convincing people of wrongs and then having them fight for it. And that's kind of what I see with Raheem. He believes everything Floyd says. Obviously, I don't,
I just don't understand how even a modern young boxing fan can't understand that you're defined by what you do in the ring and how you do it and who you fight and when you fight. Oscar De La Hoya fought everybody twice, 3 times. He went up and fought Bernard Hopkins, the best middleweight since Marvin Hagler probably, right? And he lost. But you know what? He did that. Like, he has to be given credit for that. Oscar De La Hoya is a first ballot Hall of Famer because he fought everybody. He didn't duck anybody. And because semi-believe that he's trying to run his company like that, except with this Canelo BS with the 155 weight limit. It's just getting ridiculous with that. But I don't understand how this Raheem guy can't look at what Triple G is saying and what Floyd's saying about Triple G. Floyd's ripping and ripping and ripping on Triple G. He even bought the race card into it, Billy.
Well, no,
he bought the race card.
Yeah, but you see, you got to understand, Floyd. First of all, Floyd, he's got a mental problem. If everything's not about him, he can't stand it. So, like, all of the things that he's accusing, he actually was accusing Golden Boy for not handling Canelo's career right, because he says Canelo shouldn't be seeking out the toughest competition, and he shouldn't be doing all of the things that you're supposed to do in boxing,
Right.
And he's criticizing it. And when you look at a young fan like Raheem, who's 18, 19 years old, you go back 10 years when he's 8 or 9, he doesn't even know who Obakar is or Ike Corte. He's all he saw was Floyd Mayweather making gazillions of dollars and he's undefeated. That's what the kid sees. So I'm not really criticizing him. Actually, his father should be straightening him out. His father's a big fan, and Raheem should be his father should be straightening him out, because I don't care if you're the biggest Floyd fan in the world. There comes a time when your reality steps in. I mean, all you got to do is look at his last 10 years and compare it to the first 10. The first 10 he was relevant, But Oscar, first ballot Hall of Famer, easy.
And you know what? You saying his father should be straightening him out? Well, you know what? If you're a fan, if you claim to be a boxing fan, you claim to be a football fan, you claim to do whatever, it's your job to understand the history of it. It's your job. He listed guys like Marciano and Ali and stuff like that, and yet still went on about Floyd and everything. So it just boggles my mind. I don't understand it. I can't wrap my head around anything, any email he ever sends you. It's like the polar opposite of how I believe things should be. Like Canelo, never liked Canelo. He's flat-footed. He's a good fighter. He's not. I don't think he's great. But you know what I liked about him? Lara called him out, and despite what his promoter said, he said, "I want that fight." And I think Canelo lost that fight. But he said, "I want that fight," even though that style is the worst style you can have for Canelo. That's what I like about Canelo, and that's what I think more people should do. More boxers should do. That's how boxing should be.
Well, I agree, and it's different than other sports. You are supposed to prove you're the best, and you are supposed to think outside the box and go. That's how it's supposed to be. I mean, let's keep in mind the whole idea is you're supposed to render your opponent unconscious. It is a barbaric sport. It's a hurt business.
Yeah.
I mean, it is what it is. But when you put on the realistic hat and human nature hat, you can't criticize a guy for trying to make the most money with the easiest amount of risk. I really can't, except if that's your mindset going in, you shouldn't be. That's why I say that guys like, who ruin the sport, because now he was an exception to the rule. He had the talent.
Right.
He was able to do it. But now
Right.
you have young people coming in trying to emulate that to make all the money, and it's gone crazy. You got fighters that just literally won't fight other fighters. You got networks that won't put fighters on because they're not signed with them. You got promoters that won't talk to this one and work with that one, and you have all these different sub leagues, so to speak, popping up. You got 150 million sanctioning bodies, and everybody's got a belt, and it's. And then we say, what's wrong with boxing? Well, how come nobody's into it anymore? That's why. You don't even know who, you go to anybody on the street, even us who's into the sport. I mean, when I was a kid, I could name every heavyweight champ, every middleweight champ, every champion, Now, which sanctioning bodies? I could probably name a champion from each division, but not all of them, I mean, there's so many.
It's just it's going south, and I wrote you a bunch of emails about this, about how I think Floyd Mayweather started the downfall of boxing.
Oh yeah.
Because boxing, man, do you remember when Mike? I know you do because you're a Mike Tyson fan. I was real young when Mike Tyson came out. Boxing was on the top of the world. You couldn't get bigger than boxing when Mike Tyson was knocking everybody out. Actually,
you're a little wrong on that. Mike Tyson brought it back. It was there was a lull after Ali and during the Larry Holmes era. Larry Holmes, and this is one of the reasons why I really wasn't a big fan of Larry Holmes. Larry Holmes, when he came out, he was fighting all the guys from the Ali era that were getting old. And, at that time, I resented that, and I never gave him the credit that he deserved until later, until his career was over. Then I realized that he did possess the talent, and that the truth of the matter is you can't blame a fighter that doesn't have the competition while he's there. All you can expect is that they fight everyone that's available to them. That's it. If they fight who's there, you can't criticize them. You can't invent guys. You can't go back in time. And Larry Holmes did fight everybody that was around during his era. When Mike Tyson came, he just brought that excitement back. It was on network television, and people that weren't fans got into it because he was so explosive and dominating. So yeah, and then there was another lull. And then now, you got guys trying to claim that they're the best, and they don't fight anybody.
Yeah, it's just it seems to come in waves. It comes in waves. And I believe that Triple G is going to be the next guy to take it to a different level. The only problem is I don't think the casual fan will respect his subtle but brilliant skills that he possesses. They're just waiting for the knockout. And the Lemieux fight wasn't necessarily the most entertaining fight I've ever seen. I loved it because I saw a man use his jab and control the entire fight against a dangerous fighter and win every round easily and do it so easy. It was the easiest thing in the world. Do you remember when Curtis Stevens called him out? Oh, Triple G's nothing. Triple G's nothing. Triple G let that fight go on longer than it should, and then after the beating he gave Stevens, remember what he said? He said, "Just tell your parents when you get home. Tell them I say hi," or some crap like that. trying to talk. You know?
Well, the thing with Triple G, the problem with Triple G's having now is that
he's white. Well, he's white.
Well,
that's what Floyd says.
Yeah, I know. But the problem is that he doesn't have willing dance partners. You see, when you go back in the history of the sport and you start talking about great fighters, there was always someone else that made them great. It's the same thing in any other sport. You get rivalries. Right. Rivalries make the sports great. And boxing's no different. If you don't have rivalries, now you have hearsay. This one says I'm better, but they never fight. And the other thing that I don't like about what's happened with the sport of boxing is rematches are uncommon. They used to be a common thing in this sport, and rematches create rivalries. A fight goes one way, the second, you get to know each other, so you got to be better. And you got fighters that, well, I won, I don't need to rematch. After Daniel Jacobs beat Sergio Mora, when Sergio Mora broke his ankle or something, he said, "Oh, I already beat him. I don't have to fight him again." And I never liked Sergio Mora, but I was saying to myself, man, that's not fair. The fight didn't go 2 full rounds. And the guy's saying he beat him. I don't know. He was dropped. He was in serious trouble. And Mora's not even a power puncher. So you need a dance partner, man. And unfortunately, nobody wants to dance with Triple G. I think that's his biggest problem.
Well, yeah, no one's going to sign the fight with this guy unless they're apparently paid $6 million or whatever it is. That's what it seems to be like on
Billy Joseph.
BJS. Yeah.
Did you listen to yesterday's show?
I did not listen to yesterday's show.
Yeah, go back and listen to yesterday's show, and I addressed that whole issue about him saying it's not about the money, but it's about the money. No, it really. I mean, that's what it's about with him. And he was making all these excuses. And I don't think that Triple G has a problem fighting in England. That's the beauty of Triple G. No matter where he goes, he sells out. See, that's the whole other part of it. I wish that Triple G was if Triple G was signed with an American promotional company, and I'm not knocking K2, but if he was signed with an American promotional company, more people would follow him. Everybody knows who he is, but I'm not so sure that people follow him. I don't know. I don't know what to think. I was shocked that they didn't do as what I thought they would have done with the pay-per-view with him. I think he's the best, but the other issue with him is that he's in his 30s already. He's not going to be around long,
Yeah, it's just boxing, man. It just comes in waves. It comes in waves. If you just think about you were just talking about rivalries. The first guy to ever beat Sugar Ray Robinson, and then Sugar Ray Robinson beat the hell out of him 5 more times.
Yeah,
and then you go to Ali Frazier. You know?
Right.
You just run down the line of rivalries you had to see. Ward versus Gotti. That was my era when I was starting to really get into it. And I remember just salivating, waiting for the fight all week, thinking about, oh my God, I'm going to get to see Ward Gotti 3. I wonder what's going to happen. I wonder what's going to happen. We don't have any of that. We had Mosley, De La Hoya, and
hey, Graziano Zale, some great fights. Even Rocky Marciano and Ezra Charles, some great fights. I mean, Jack Dempsey, even though he came up short, Jack Dempsey and Gene Tunney. The list goes on and on and on. There was always another dance partner, and we don't get it now. But anyway. All right, man. Well, listen, I appreciate it, and I'm glad to hear from you. Glad that everything is going well, and hopefully we'll hear from you again soon.
Yeah, I'll let you email about all the hatred I feel for Floyd Mayweather. Okay.
Well, listen, I don't want to talk about him no more. Unless he's going to fight again, I don't even want to give him the platform because he's succeeding. and getting his name still. He's not relevant. He's retired. Remember, we all know he's not.
He's playing the race card, Billy.
No,
he can't play the race card when the guy's from Kazakhstan.
I know.
It doesn't work.
I know. And the people that believe it, I believe that he has set race relations back 30 years. But that's
I agree.
Yeah, but I mean, the thing is the best way to battle it is not to bring it up. Just forget it. Let him look like the idiot that he is. Because listen, if you read what he says, if you listen to what he says and you read between the lines, he's saying all the things that he gets criticized for. He's criticizing other fighters for doing what he doesn't do. He's saying fighters should marinate the fight. They shouldn't fight right away. They shouldn't fight tough competition. They shouldn't do this. What are you talking about? Eventually a bell is going to go off in the majority of the people's head, and they're going to say, wait a minute, what's this guy talking about? He's going to hang himself. Listen, he ain't the sharpest tool in the shed. I know he's made a lot of money, but I am convinced somebody else is pulling the strings, because he clearly says some stupid stuff at the wrong time. So let's not even talk about him. Let's focus on the new fighters.
I will not send you an email about Floyd as long as you will agree with me that, for the love of God, you can't play the race card when someone is not really white and from Kazakhstan. That doesn't work.
Well, listen.
It's a whole different country. It's a whole different culture.
Let me just say this. Floyd Mayweather has convinced people that black African American people are not racist. He's a racist. Floyd is a racist. All he's got to do, all you got to do is go back and punch up all of the stuff that he was saying about the Asians and all of this stuff. I mean, what he says about women. You listen. Yep. You're a racist if you look down on women. I mean, come on. Racism isn't. It's racism is colorblind. It just because you're black doesn't mean you're not a racist. Dax and I were talking about this the other day, and he brought up a really good point. Back when I was a kid, we watched All in the Family, and All in the Family was, Archie Bunker was the biggest racist that you could think of. But here's the funny part: Jefferson, he was the black guy in the thing, and he was a racist. He was against white. He was always calling everybody honkies and crackers and everything else. And that's what was the whole point of the show, was that there were racists that were white and there were racists that were black. The whole point is racism is no good. So I mean, the best way to combat it is not to talk about it. So not to talk about it in a way like that. That's the best way. Let people just do what they got to do. So anyway, for having so many millions of dollars, he's literally the dumbest person I have ever seen in the public spotlight. Dumber than Paris Hilton, dumber than whoever else is in the public spotlight. He's so dumb, Bill. All right, I'm done. I can't even think about this. I'll let you go. All right,
enjoy
brother.
The show.
Have a good one.
All right.
All right. Take care.
I gotta go.
All right.
Bye.
That's my man Mike from Michigan. He's probably online getting a coffee. I don't know if you watched this show for a long time, but one time he called. He was in McDonald's getting a coffee, and he's going, wait, I'm on the Billy C show. But anyway, some news. Phone line is open for anybody's thoughts. 845-228-8710. It was announced yesterday, actually, that Carl Frampton and Scott Quigg will be fighting their fight in England on pay-per-view in the UK. So that's going to be taking place on February 27th, and it will be on pay-per-view. And it's already sold out, from what I hear, in the Manchester arena. So we'll wait to see what's going on with that. And to counter Mike, we have his alter ego. We got Joel on the line. What's up, man?
What's up, buddy? I know I'm calling. I'm calling. It's like you said yesterday. There's no show complete without an email from Jesse. There's no show complete without a call from Joel. Yeah. What do you mean you spent the holidays with the grandkids? You told me in an email today that on the 22nd you're turning 25 years old. What do you mean, grandkids?
I know. I started really young. I couldn't. I used to let my little head do the thinking for my big head. So I'm only hitting 30, but I still do have grandkids. But they're little. They're young.
I wanted to just bring up today that I was reading on one of the websites that it looks like I'm assuming a PBC card in February. I don't know if you read this today, but they're talking about Leo Santa Cruz and Kiko Martinez. Now, I can understand if maybe it was Abner Mares looking for a rebound fight, but how do you go to Kiko Martinez after beating Abner Mares in one of the biggest PBC fights of the year, of 2015? I'm confused. What's that about?
Well, it shouldn't be confusing because that is what happens with the sport today, which bothers me because it happened in the sport years ago too. But here's the difference: you get a fight like that, which, let's be real. I mean, listen, Kiko Martinez was a relative fighter. I mean, he was relevant and a good fighter for a long time. It's just that his best days are long gone. What bothers me is I don't have a problem with Leo Santa Cruz going from an Abner Mares fight to a Kiko Martinez fight. I have no problem if he was fighting 5 times a year. Then he deserves to get, a couple of those types of fights sprinkled in. But when they're only fighting 2 and 3 times a year and we're being forced to watch less than stellar matchups, then I have a problem. That's my issue. Now, Leo Santa Cruz, up until last year, he was fighting frequently. And I love Santa Cruz. So I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt and see what happens, and I do think that the Abner Mares rematch will happen.
You think that's a big money fight? I was watching. Oh yeah, that's right. I was watching the Mosley Mayorga fight. Then I never really got a chance to completely watch the whole thing back. But I mean, was it a close fight or I forget?
It was a close fight. I was a little surprised at the scores. I thought that the aggression and the punches being thrown actually should have been in Abner Mares' favor. But the accuracy of Leo Santa Cruz got him the edge on most of the scorecards. I thought it was an action-packed fight. I loved the fight. And quite honestly, I was a little surprised. I thought that Abner Mares would give Leo Santa Cruz a much tougher fight in a sense. Not that it wasn't a tough fight, but tougher than it was for Leo Santa Cruz because that was by far the best opponent he had. Listen, I love both of those guys, and I think it's a great sell, and you're definitely going to see a rematch with those guys, definitely. But it doesn't surprise me that it's not next. They'll both fight a fight first, then they'll get the rematch.
Yeah, no, I just I remember I think it was a guy named Jonathan Romero that was fighting Kiko Martinez on an HBO dog card a couple years ago. And I think that's when Kiko kind of turned himself around. But, his last couple fights, he's, been, I think he fought with Scott Quigg. He got blown out in a couple rounds. I wouldn't mind it either. I just feel that, he's a past his prime guy. He's not on the level that he was when he was, beat Jonathan Romero. And then he fought Carl Frampton, for the belt. And Frampton won it, I believe, or whatever, that whole nonsense. But I just feel that it could be a little better, but this is PBC, like you say, it's boxing, and that's why it happens. I just want to also ask you, the all these purse bids with all the Heyman fighters, like the John Latikanen and Jorge Linares. Why is it that I always seem to feel like these, they avoid purse bids, and if they do go to purse bid, I always feel like PBC guys are winning. I mean, in the case of the Latikanen and Linares fight, I know that they said HBO had no interest in it, so Golden Boy didn't have HBO's backing, where Showtime was interested in backing Lou DiBella. So I just always seem to find like the Glaskov and what's the Glaskov fight next week? That's also on Showtime. I always feel like the Al Heyman fighters always seem to they always seem to win the purse bid.
Well, just to answer your question, the first part of it. The reason why promoters would try to avoid a purse bid and try and cut a deal prior to the purse bid is so that they can pretty much set the terms. Because a purse bid, let's assume, in this case, you got DiBella and Golden Boy, they're 2 fighters, and you would say to yourself, well, DiBella and Golden Boy are going to submit the purse bids in sealed envelopes, and, one of them are going to win it, right? Well, you never know if like a promoter from left field comes in and a Russian promoter or a European promoter and they throw a ton of money and they win the purse bid, and now that fight isn't in somebody's backyard or it's not on a network television. So they try to cut the deal I shouldn't say network television. I should say U.S. television. They try to cut a deal, the best for both worlds, and also, by the way, the purse split without a purse bid can be negotiated between the promoters. If it goes to purse bid, then the purse split goes to the way the sanctioning body calls for it. So the challenger wouldn't have made as much money. Now, as far as the PBC seemingly to win purse bids, well, Al Heyman has, that child molesting looking guy called Steve Espinosa from Showtime, in his back pocket, and he's got, I don't know how this guy still has his job at Showtime, but he buys up any fight he's told to buy up from Al Heyman. And quite honestly, HBO wasn't interested in it. That's why Golden Boy didn't even put in a bid on it. So pretty much DeBella and Golden Boy came to an agreement, and the deal is done with the Lynn Ayres Zlatakanian fight, which I was actually going to talk about a little bit later. But yeah, I mean, that's the way it works, man.
Yeah, it just drives me crazy. Like I wish it would be the other way around. Like an FU to Al Heyman. Sometimes these purse bids are won by the promoter that works with HBO. Because I always feel like things go the PBC way, and I'd like to see it go the other way once in a while. I remember when Gary Russell fought Vasily Lomachenko, and that was on Showtime, but he won, so I was happy about that. But last thing I'll say to you is, are you on the Conor McGregor bandwagon yet? Have you gotten into him? Because I know you've talked about him, and when you mentioned that other guy who hasn't fought since September, I was wondering if you, I know you're not much of a mixed martial arts fan, but have you been following him at all?
No, I just I don't follow the MMA at this point. I've called some live events and stuff, and if somebody wants me to do it, I would, but I'm not doing it for just to do it. I try to stick with boxing. The reason why I brought that up is because I can't stand when people use the race card when it's not appropriate. When it is appropriate, I'll be the first one to stick up for them. But when it's not, that's a whole nother ball game, And I didn't think that was fair. And when he was saying, oh yeah, well, I didn't think racism was in MMA, it's still in boxing and everything. And I'm saying to myself, in case you haven't noticed, if you look at boxing, the number of look at what the top race in boxing is African American or just black. They don't even have to be American, I mean, that's the majority of the sport. There's more people getting opportunities of color than any other race, so I can't see how that's prejudiced. I just can't, but whatever. That's, I'm glad I don't have to go through that in the world I live in. Everyone gets along, so.
Yeah, no, I agree. And they did confirm today that UFC 197, it will be Miesha Tate fighting Holly Holm. That's March 5th on pay-per-view. So, I know you're not going to watch it, but at least now it's in the back of your head that she will be defending her title before she fights Rousey in the rematch, and probably in July. So I'm going to look forward to that. But
hey, nothing for nothing, but Miesha Tate's a tough fighter, isn't she? That's no layup fight for Holly, is it?
Yeah, she won 2 fights in a row that I thought she wasn't going to win. I mean, she's been pretty tough. I think Holmes on a whole other level. Her skill set, I don't think she's going to get taken down. I think she could definitely hurt Tate standing. But, it's definitely, Tate was originally going to fight Rousey. She won, I forgot who she fought, but she won a fight, and then people kind of labeled her the next person in line, even though she'd already beaten, even though Rousey already beat Tate twice. So they were going to, and then Ronda Rousey, I think, was on Good Morning America, and in the summer, and she says, hey, I'm fighting Holly Holm or something, and Miesha Tate didn't know about it. So, I mean, she's finally getting her shot, but I think the way that, I saw the lines today, they said, I think the early lines is Holm like a minus 400 and Tate's plus 350. But, it's going to be a tough fight. I'm looking forward to it, but I just think that Holm's just going to, decimate her, to be honest.
Yeah, well, you know what? I also saw that Ronda Rousey is posing in some magazine with nothing on except painted swimsuits. A swimsuit with it's just painted on. So she's cashing in. She's a good looking woman. No
You
doubt.
know what it is though? Well, I'll tell you what I don't like is Holly Holm was on the one of these MMA radio shows I listen to on Monday before you come on, and
which one?
She didn't answer the question clearly, but it seemed like
which show? Which show?
Ronda Rousey didn't congratulate her on the victory after she beat her. So I don't know. To me, that seems a little cold, and I don't like people like that.
Which show did you listen to?
I listened to Ariel Hawani's podcast, the MMA Hour.
Because I like MMA junkies. They're my boys. They're
I know. Yeah. I'm nothing against them. I just sometimes think they can kind of be a little dull. When you were on Fight Now TV, they were on too, and it just I would try to watch it, but there was no passion. They didn't seem to be interested. I don't know. I don't want to get into it too much, but I like Ariel, and she was on the show, and and it just bothered me to think that Rousey's so big, she could be also big in return and just say, hey, look, you beat me, great fight, congratulations, and she didn't say that.
No, well, you know what, Holly, I love her. I know the team very well. I've done a lot of stuff with that team, and she's a class act, in and out of the ring, no matter which sport. So it is what it is, right?
Exactly. All right, buddy. Look, that's it from me.
All right.
I will let you go. Have a great weekend, and don't I hope you're not going to that game, Minnesota and Seattle, because I hear it's going to be 0 degrees tomorrow night.
No, I'm going to be cozy in about 20 degrees up here in the Adirondacks. So. All right, my man.
Buddy. Listen, have a great weekend. Thanks so much for your time. I'll see you next week, buddy.
All right, take care.
Take care. Bye.
That's my man Joel from the chat room. Hey, by the way, don't forget about your brain. www.brainhealthforever.com and find out what I'm talking about. Hey, another thing, speaking of Joel, he shamed me into doing a post-fight show. Our first post-fight of 2016 will be immediately following the Deontay Wilder Artur Spitska fight. So as soon as the official announcement is made on that fight, then tune it in right here on BillyCBoxing.com. We'll open up the phone lines. We'll get your thoughts. I'll give you mine. I'll be scoring both of the fights, both heavyweight championship fights, and I'll be giving you my scores. So make sure you tune it in right here on BillyCBoxing.com. It will only be on BillyCBoxing.com for that post-fight show. Heavyweight Andy Ruiz, I've been very critical of him and sometimes the shape that he came in. And I give him credit because, he has looked better and he's lost some weight and he seems to be getting better and better. Well, he had signed to fight a fight against Danny Batchelder, which is a whole nother story. Danny Batchelder, actually, I promoted him. He used to fight at middleweight, and he's pretty much a sparring partner now, but he's a tough kid. I mean, he comes to fight. Well, it was announced today that apparently Andy Ruiz has pulled out of that fight with Danny Batchelder, and apparently there was some issues, and he wanted to fight Michael Grant. Michael Grant pulled out, failed the medical exam. Then they scheduled him for Danny Batchelder. Now Ruiz pulled out, so we'll keep you posted on that. And one last thing I wanted to mention real quick. I got my man Dax on the line. We're going to go to him in a second. But, Derek Chisora is trying to, he signed with Team Sauerland. And since then, they've been throwing him on these cards against these, half-dead guys. For all I know, maybe they are even dead. I don't know. Well, it was announced today, about 10 minutes before we came on the air, that they're putting him on the Fagenbutz Giovanni Di Carli card this weekend, and they're putting him against a 14-8 guy, Andreas Kozimar from Hungary, in an eight-round fight. Now, if you recall, he was up for fighting Robert Holinas. This is my problem with these kinds of fights. They give these guys these stay-busy fights, and then all of a sudden they maneuver them up in the so-called rankings, somebody's rankings, for a title fight. Listen, this is just a sparring session for Chisora that he gets a win for. I'm not so keen on that, especially a guy that's established in his career. Now, don't get me wrong, Derek Chisora, a lot has to be said about him and his ability anyway. But nonetheless, another fight, last minute, he'll be getting a W again this weekend. Joining me right now, Dax Khan. What's up, brother?
Hey, what's going on, everybody? I was just, did you get a chance to watch that show the other day on Showtime? I think they're going to start making a regular series out of it. I know I haven't had a chance to talk to you. It's called Showtime Championship Boxing 30.
It's called what?
It's Showtime Championship Boxing 30.
No, I didn't.
No, it's actually, you'd actually like it if you can get there. I guess what they're doing is they're kind of reliving some careers like past guys, from just as it says 30 years ago. And the other night they had a great, it was about an hour and a half, 2 hours of a young Evander Holyfield back when he first started. They did his first 20 fights as in his career, going back to the cruiserweight division, and they were showing all them fights that from '84 back. I think they went from '84 to '88.
Huh. Yeah, I remember watching when Evander. It's a lot of people don't realize, but when Evander Holyfield made that transition from into heavyweight division, he was actually, and it's amazing to think of it because the technology has skyrocketed so quick, but he was actually the first fighter to utilize modern training techniques in the sport of boxing. Prior to Evander Holyfield, people were still chopping wood and running with work boots on and doing the old Rocky Marciano workouts. Now, ironically enough, they've gone back to some of that, some of these guys. But Evander, I remember watching some stuff on him working with weights and different working specific muscle groups and stuff, and building himself up. Because when you think of it, if we want to assume that no steroids were used, he turned around and really transformed his body into a heavyweight, and the rest was history. I mean, obviously he had a successful career at that weight.
Yeah, it's funny how you're speaking of that, because one of the things I was noticing when I was watching that, and how sleek he was. As a heavyweight, he was overly muscular. That was one of the appeals, to mainstream fans. How built he was and bulky, and I think a lot of that was done purposely, so he'd be able to absorb the shots of those bigger guys. Because Evander, in terms of bulk and bone structure, he's really not that big of a guy when you want to put him in a heavyweight perspective. As a cruiserweight, he had that perfect build, and he had muscle tone to him, but he wasn't overly muscular, and he was a lot more fluent.
Well, it's funny you say that, because do you know which part of his body he worked first to prepare himself for the heavyweight division?
His neck and his
Yes, you're right. You're 100% right. He worked his neck, and the whole principle of that is the shock absorber theory of your neck. And listen, when all is said and done, whether people like Evander or not, he had, in my opinion, the best recuperative powers that I've ever seen in boxing. I mean, this was a guy that was almost half dead, and the next thing you know, he's coming back and winning the round. I mean, it was amazing to watch him recover. The George Foreman fight was one of the most amazing things I ever witnessed. All George had to do was land one more punch. The time it took him to waddle over to the other end of the ring to hit Evander recovered in that fight. Amazing recuperative powers.
I think it was actually in that show. Speaking about the recuperative powers, I think they were doing the Ricky Parkey fight, which only lasted a couple rounds. But Vander got rocked a couple times. For those few rounds that it went, the first 2 rounds was a lot of good back and forth action, and was, I guess, what you would say, later on in the heavyweight division, we would call vintage Holyfield. Where Ricky Parkey landed some real nice solid shots and shook Evander up a little bit. But Evander, as a cruiserweight, he was a very strong cruiserweight, aside from being more mobile. And when he would hit Ricky Parkey and a few other guys, Dwight Muhammad Kawi, for example, you'd see he'd actually move those guys. And the other thing that you notice, where that's when the cruiserweight division first really started making, some sort of noise, and a lot of that has to be because of Evander Holyfield. I think the WBA title, I think that was, they actually called that the light, the junior heavyweight, or the light heavyweight, or no, I'm trying to. They didn't call it cruiserweight.
Yeah, they did. They actually had, because remember, the cruiserweight division was already in play.
No, I think it was junior heavyweight. Their title was called, and the IBF was cruiserweight. Because I kept saying, when I'm watching the show, I kept saying to myself, I'm like, I do remember reading about that. When that first came out, and that was kind of sort of I guess how now certain sanctioning bodies will call their title, the super welterweight, and the other one will call it the junior middleweight.
Well,
that.
Well, it's funny. The word cruiserweight actually showed up in something I was researching, and they had a cruiserweight division like in the 20s or something, and it just never worked or something. I got to look that back up, man. But there was a cruiserweight division years and years ago. And then it didn't come back until the 80s, I think. I think that's when it came around. It's unfortunate that the cruiserweight division isn't more popular than it is, Dax, because that's really the size of the heavyweights that used to be. All these great heavyweights we talk about were really cruiserweights by today's standards.
As a matter of fact, at cruiserweight division, now that you bring that back up, some Mike Tyson opponents fought at that weight. Henry Tillman.
Yep.
He was a cruiserweight.
Yep. Henry Tillman.
For a while.
James
Tillis, I believe. No, James Tillis, I believe, he was never a cruiserweight.
No.
There were some guys there, and you're 100% correct. Guys, were Joe Frazier. Joe Frazier would have nowadays he'd have been a cruiserweight.
Dax, Jack Johnson, who they referred to as being a monster back in his time.
He'd have been a cruiserweight.
He only weighed 210 pounds. Mike Tyson would have been a cruiserweight. I mean, 200 when he was in his prime, 211, 212. Jack Dempsey was a light heavyweight at he was a cruiserweight at 188. Rocky Marciano never weighed more than 189. I mean, so they were all cruiserweights. But anyway, yeah, it's crazy.
Well, Rocky Balboa. There's a guy right there.
Yeah.
He fought under 200 pounds, but he moved like a middleweight. When he was with Apollo Creed, of course.
And boy, could he beat the hell out of a side of beef or what?
I'm telling you, he did. It's like and that series was on yesterday. It's the first time that my younger son has ever watched that, and we're watching Rocky 3. And I think that some of the stuff you see in the sport today, I actually believe that a lot of these younger guys mimic the stuff that Clubber Lang used to do and used to say. And it almost seems like a lot of these announcers today mimic what those guys in the movies used to say or how they would act, especially that one scene when Clubber Lang is coming out and he's getting to the ring, and they're like, oh, here's the heavyweight champion now during the rematch. And, I got one word for him, like, awesome. Yeah. There's a guy who we know, and you're not too fond of Mauro Ranallo, but when I was looking at that the other night, I was thinking, that's something I can actually have pictured Mauro Ranallo saying on a broadcast, one of the fighters coming in, hey, and here he comes. Back when I was in Japan, we call a guy like that awesome, just awesome.
I went to Japan 33 times, that's what he always says. I can't stand it. But
in a week.
Chuck Wepner, the whole story of Rocky is the Chuck Wepner's life. He finally won that lawsuit, which... it was blatant. We don't know how much he won, but that whole Rocky story apparently was stolen from Chuck Wepner. And Sylvester Stallone finally forked over some money, and poor Chuck Wepner, the Jersey bleeder, was he's still to this day a alcohol liquor salesman in Jersey, but he finally got some money. But
anyway. he should have done that, but. Back to this Showtime Championship Boxing. It's called SCB 30, which and when you look at it, it stands for Showtime Championship Boxing 30. And I guess the whole premise of it is they're going to take some of these fighters from back in 30 years ago, and I think they're going to do some SCB 40. And what they're going to do is they're going to take some of these guys that have dominated and had these special careers, and they're going to go to the very start and show, their rise up until the point where they became a big name. And it's really, it was great. I wish they would have more shows like that on there. And the one thing, people were speaking about, I think earlier you might have been speaking about Mike Tyson. After the second Kawi fight, they go to Mike Tyson in the crowd. And they're speaking about, I think Colonel Bob Sheridan was doing the broadcasting, and he was speaking about, Holyfield was getting ready to move up and hopefully make a run at fighting Mike Tyson. And they start talking to Mike in the crowd, and they're saying, well, what do you think of him? Do you think he's ready for Mike Tyson? And Mike had kind of this odd reply where he got quiet for a second. He kind of looked and he kind of rolled his eyes. He goes, "Oh, he's a good fighter. Well, what do you think?" And Mike just like, I just think he's a very skilled fighter. That's all I can say. And he kind of had that little bit of a stutter about him. Kind of makes you look at that, wonder and say, you know what? Maybe at that point in time, Mike already knew I don't want to meet this guy anytime soon. And that's when, Mike Tyson was Mike Tyson.
Showtime better watch out with this new series because they might start educating some of the fans that have bought into a lot of their BS with some of the fighters they put on their network today. If they start showing how these guys, real fighters, how they rose and who they had to fight and who they had to beat to get to where they were, I think people might start to realize, hey, wait a minute, it's not like that anymore. You know what I mean?
I was on our Twitter account today. I had a little extra time in my hands. So I was fooling around with some pictures on my computer, and I took an old photo from a Flintstones cartoon with Barney Rubble in the ring wearing gloves, and you got Fred in the corner being his corner man. And I put on there, this is the last fighter in the sport that didn't fight at catch weight.
I would like to see that. You should email that to me. They never had an episode where they were fighting, were they? Oh.
Yeah. He was, Fred had him in there as a boxer, and the guy that Barney was against was like this monster. You know what I mean? If anybody should have had a catch weight, Barney should have had one.
That's funny. Yeah, you should email that to me. But
and same thing with you got Billy Joe Saunders.
Who was Wilbur to Williker? All the names. Carry Granite. Carry Granite. But.
Yeah.
I'll still like Bugs Bunny's ravishing Rhino against the Crusher, So
Yeah, you know what? He's up on me. He's pulling his neck. He's doing all that, and he's having like zero effect. And there's another one where the announcers, he's doing another Mauro Ronaldo. He's selling that fight.
Yeah, that's funny when the Crusher takes Ravishing Rhino and he had his little hairnet and he just takes it and makes like a speed bag out of him, But anyway,
what would your name be if the show was on during the Flintstone era?
I would be Billy C.
I don't know. You have to have like you have to have like some sort
stone.
of rock or pebble
Billy C. Stone. I don't know, but
Billy C. Stone. I'll have to use that one later when I put this out in the blog.
Yeah, there you go.
Tonight I'm Billy C. Stone.
Yeah, there you go. Hey, listen, man. We're going to be doing that post-fight show after the Deontay Wilder Artur Spitska fight. So that'll be our first one of 2016. So I'll be looking forward to that next week.
Yeah, absolutely. I will too. And this should be. This should be a good fight. We'll see. However, Deontay Wilder does in that fight is going to set a tone on what these other fighters want to do.
Well,
these other guys, and whether or not anybody's going to be willing to unify.
I think that's going to be a better fight than Deontay thinks, but we'll see.
We'll see. Have a good weekend, all.
All right, brother. Take care. That's Dax Khan. You can check out his column up on BillyCBoxing.com. Hey, remember, I'm the guy that said that I wouldn't be surprised if Spitska beats Deontay Wilder. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying that it's going to happen, but I wouldn't be surprised. Just to follow up on the Jorge Linares Dijon Zalakian fight, it has been avoided the purse bid. It's set. Golden Boy Promotions. Dax just put it in the chat room. So anybody that watching the show live right now can come on over and see the picture that Dax just did. He put it up in the chat room. It's pretty funny. But anyway, the Linares fight has been set. It will be promoted by DeBella Entertainment in association with Golden Boy and Tiakin Boxing, which are Linares co-promoters. Lou DeBella has 90 days to put the fight on, and he had informed the press that the fight will be on Showtime. So that was signed, sealed, and delivered today. We'll keep you posted on when and where that fight will take place, but you can watch it on Showtime. I want to give a shout out. I was talking to a good friend of mine today Steve Canton. Now, Steve Canton is a guy that's been in the business a long time. If you watched our live broadcast up at the International Boxing Hall of Fame, you got to see us talk with Steve Canton. I've known Steve for a good 20 years now, and he's a trainer out of Florida, and he's had some really good fighters in his gym. He's an old school guy, really nice guy, and he's involved with the Florida Boxing Hall of Fame. And I just wanted to give a shout out tomorrow at Steve's gym, which is in Fort Myers. It's SJC Boxing Gym in Fort Myers. Tomorrow, they will be announcing the Florida Hall of Fame inductees that will be going into the Florida Boxing Hall of Fame tomorrow. At 3 p.m. They're also going to have a special 10-count ceremony for Howard Davis Jr., who just passed away. And like I told you guys, Howard Davis Jr. was the first guy, one of the first fighters I met in person. He was done with the Olympics, on his way to Vegas to sign his first pro deal, and he was with his then promoter Dennis Rappaport, and I got to meet them on the plane going to Vegas. And I'll never forget it. Howard Davis, and I've subsequently had met Howard Davis many times after that. But I'll never forget what my impression was of Howard Davis. What a nice guy he was. He was dressed and looked like a fighter. He was all in a white, sport jumpsuit type thing. I don't know if it was a Nike or whatever, but it was like that. And him and Dennis Rappaport were there, and it was pretty cool. And that was on a plane on the way to Vegas. So they're going to be doing a tribute to him. So if you're in the Fort Myers, Florida area tomorrow, stop by the SJC Boxing Gym in Fort Myers and tell my man Steve Canton Billy C says hi. And that's actually one of my dreams, to be inducted into the I mean, listen, I know I'm never going to get anything because I shoot my mouth off too much, but the one place I would like to end up someday is there. There's something about the Florida Boxing Hall of Fame that I admire. Aside from the International Boxing Hall of Fame, I think that the Florida State Boxing Hall of Fame is a class act. And even though I'm a New Yorker through and through, and the New York Boxing Hall of Fame has a lot of great people in it, for some reason I'm attracted to the Florida Boxing Hall of Fame. So anyway, one other thing I wanted to announce real quick is Golden Boy announced today that they cut a deal with Tecate Beer for their monthly series that's on Estrella Television. As you know, Tecate is a Mexican beer. We see them a lot with Top Rank. And the thing I'm wondering about this deal, I mean, hey, I'm glad that they got involved and they're going to be on the network and everything. But I'm wondering, number one, how Top Rank feels that Tecate went and signed a deal, a sponsorship deal with Golden Boy, since they're their number one. I mean, every major Top Rank card you have, Tecate Beer is one of those major sponsors. And then on the other side of the coin, I'm wondering how Corona Beer feels. Corona was on Golden Boy. They were like their top sponsor for a lot of the Golden Boy shows. So some juggling and shaking of the sponsorships, huh? Sponsorships, the sips, the sponsor sips. But anyway, don't forget, man, we are doing a event Thursday night, January 21st, out of beautiful West Palm Beach, Florida. We're going to be doing a live broadcast. Now, I'm going to be down there. I'm actually calling the action ringside. It's a great card in West Palm Beach. A lot of local young kids, up-and-coming talent. I was mentioning a super middleweight on yesterday's show, Victor DeRocha. He's going to be on there fighting another undefeated super middleweight as a co-main event. So it's going to be a card that I don't think you're going to want to miss, especially if you can get down to West Palm. Now, if you're thinking about it and you want to make a nice long weekend, come check out the fights and stuff. Remember, it's my birthday weekend, and my birthday's the following day. So come on down, hang out with me. I'll be glad to drink as many scotches as you want to get me. And if you want to know where we're staying and all that stuff, drop me an email, Billy@TalkinBoxing. That's TalkinBoxing.com. Now, there is a fight poster up on BillyCBoxing.com that you can click to get more information. Now, if you can't make it down to beautiful Florida in the middle of ice cold January in the Northeast, well, fear not, because we're going to be broadcasting the whole show from start to finish right on LDL TV and LDLTV.com. And in addition to the show, we're also going to be broadcasting the weigh-in, which is on Wednesday night, and we'll be doing some interviews with all the fighters, and then some special guests. From what I understand, Berminster Vern is going to be joining us, along with former world title challenger Jamal McCline. So make sure you mark those 2 dates down, because you're going to be already kind of pissed off at me, because that whole week, beginning on the 18th, we will not be doing a show until the following Monday, because I will be on the road. So I apologize for that one.
Wake up. It's time for the It's Too Early for a Trivia Question.
Today's It's Too Early for a Trivia Question. Question is being brought to us by the Billy C. Deontay Wilder, Artur Spitska post-fight show. That's right. We are doing a post-fight show. It'll begin approximately 5 or 6 minutes after the official announcement is made next weekend. So make sure you tune it in right here exclusively on BillyCBoxing.com and on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/talkinboxing, TalkinBoxing. Now, if you are watching on YouTube, whether you're watching live or whether you're watching the replay, make sure you subscribe to us so you get the notification when we go live. You're not going to want to miss it. You're going to want to call in. We're going to have the phone lines open. We'll have some guests coming on and all that stuff. Plus, we'll answer the phone for you and your thoughts. Now, we know, you guys know that we take one call at a time, even though we can take more than one. But we like to take one at a time. So immediately following the Wilder-Spitska fight, we will be doing a post-fight show, our first one of 2016. So make sure you mark that down on your calendar and you know where to go to talk about the fight when everybody else is in their feety pajamas. Today's It's Too Early for a Trivia Question, which is supplied to us by Henry Haskup, is a tough one. I've given a couple of hints, and I'm going to give a couple of more, or at least one more, today. So the question is, which former world champion lost the most title fights? Which former champion lost the most title fights? Now, the first hint I gave you was that he fought between 1980 and 2010. The second hint I gave you is that some of the title fights were in, or I said some of the title fights were in the super featherweight division. Today's hint, some of the title fights were also in the featherweight division. If you're the first one to get this answer correct by emailing me, Billy@TalkinBoxing, TalkinBoxing.com, you'll win a choice of some great prizes. Good luck to everyone on that.
This day in boxing history.
And finally, this day in boxing history is being brought to us by my book, Tom Molyneux, From Bondage to Baddest Man on the Planet, is available right now where all books are sold. And technically, you could buy it right now, whenever you're listening, wherever you're listening, if you go to www.barnesandnoble.com or amazon.com. Now, the electronic versions of each of those publishers are available, or suppliers, I should say. So if you like the electronic versions, you can get those. Now, if you're looking to get a signed copy, visit our website, www.billycboxing.com, and follow the directions. You'll see that, along with some other great books up on billycboxing.com. And remember something. February is Black History Month. And the story of Tom Molyneux, From Bondage to Baddest Man on the Planet, is the story of a fighter who actually was born a slave and was forced to fight and became the first American champion, and was actually the first American to compete in a world championship fight. And this guy has been wronged by history, not only boxing history, but American history, just because of the color of his skin. I think it's a great story, not only for boxing fans, but for everyone. And I think it's a great addition for your library, for anyone you know that's interested in American history and black history. So for the month of February, get yourself a dozen copies or so. Tom Molyneux, From Bondage to Baddest Man on the Planet. On this day, January 8th in 1975, Miguel Canto wins a 15-round decision over Soji Oguma to win the WBC World Flyweight title. Took place in Japan, of course. On this day in the year 2000, Johnny Tapia wins a 12-round decision over Jorge Elciar Julio to retain his WBO World Bantamweight title, and that took place in Albuquerque, New Mexico. On this day in 1995, former world middleweight champion and Boxing Hall of Famer Carlos Monzon died in a car accident, returning to prison while on furlough from his conviction of killing his common-law wife. He had a career record of 87 wins, 58 coming by knockout, 3 losses, and 9 draws. He was inducted into the Boxing Hall of Fame in 1990, and he was 52 years old when he passed on this day in 1995. And also on this day, January 8th, in 1789, no, I wasn't born, but Jack Broughton, who was considered the father of boxing, died at 85 years old. Now, that's pretty old for back then. He is credited as the first person to set up a boxing school to teach boxing. He set up Broughton's Rules in 1743. After he killed a man in the ring, and his rules basically stayed in effect for almost 100 years when they were finally replaced by the London Prize Rules, which took place in 1838. Jack Broughton, the father of boxing, and incidentally, he was a fencer. He was into fencing and utilized some of his fencing skills and turned it into what we know today as boxing. So, interesting stuff. You always learn something here on the Talkin' Boxing with Billy C show. Hey, man, it's a slow weekend for boxing here in the United States, but next week kicks off everything, including our Billy C Challenge and everything that goes along with it. So, stay warm, and, oh, I forgot to tell you this. Don't forget to tune in Monday evening, same bat time, same bat channel. Until then, ciao, baby.